Hey gang, we all know Spotify has become the ultimate app destination for music lovers. I have an account and I love it. I find new music by following Tastemaker playlists, and I make my own playlist that I share featuring music from guests that have been on the show. But did you know that aside from millions of songs, Spotify now has all of your favorite podcasts, including How Did I Get Here? Yes, all of your podcasts are available on Spotify. Just go to Spotify.com or download the app from your app store, and don't forget to follow How Did I Get Here? That's Spotify. Millions of songs, thousands of podcasts. Let's get down. Attention musicians of all levels. It's not always easy picking out a song by ear. Sometimes you need a little help. Well, I have the app for you. Whether you're a professional musician or a beginner, Ultimate Guitar is an amazing app. For just $2.99, you get the chords and tabs on guitar, bass, or ukulele for over 1 million songs. They're all available at your fingertips. You also get tools like a tuner, metronome, chord library, lessons, videos, and more. You can find out any song you want. It also has like transpose button. It has auto scroll that you can change the speed to so you can play along with the song. A lot of the songs have the lyrics there so you can sing along with them. Ultimate Guitar is an amazing app. Just go to ultimateguitar.com or download the app to your phone today and start playing. Start playing any song you want. Ultimate Guitar, that's the place for you. Let's get down.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
It's time for How Did I Get Here? And now here is your host,
All right, hello, I'm Johnny, I'm your host. Welcome to the show. I hope you guys have all had a good week. Whatever it is you've been doing this week, I have been spending time in Houston with my grandma. As I said on the last show, she fell down, broke some ribs, had to have emergency spleen surgery, and she's doing better now. She did have a setback on Tuesday, had to go back to the hospital. She was having some chest pressure. It was pretty intense. But yeah, she's doing better today. So I came home to do some stuff, do a couple podcasts, do this intro, do this stuff, and I'm heading back to Houston in the morning to spend the weekend helping relieve one of my aunts to go back home and her husband, chill out for a little while, and I'll take a shift looking out for my grandma. So it's been a family week, hanging out with family, doing that kind of stuff, helping out, and man, it's been crazy too because I'm Cuban. And all that crazy stuff is going on in Cuba. So even throughout all this intensity and stuff, my grandma's still constantly like, what's going on over there? What's going on over there? It's pretty intense, man. Maybe they'll get it together. Maybe they'll get out of that communism thing. Be great, wouldn't it? Other than that, what else has been going on? Dude, my the resurgence of the coronavirus has been a little freaky with the variants and stuff. My dad, 2 of my brothers, and one of my former stepmoms got COVID. All of them non-vaxxers though. So, but everyone's doing better, all right. My dad had some kind of weird experimental transfusion thing that they give people antibodies, kind of like what they gave President Trump back when he got it. Anyway, it's been a crazy week to say the least. I hope you're doing well. I hope your efforts are going well. Guys, I have a great show for you today. Producer, engineer, drummer, singer, songwriter, Frankie Siragusa is on the show today. He's from Los Angeles. He's a Los Angeles-based artist, and he has a studio there called The Lab Studio LA. You can find him at thelabstudiola.com. Frankie is also the drummer of the Posies, and he's been putting out records of his own. He actually put out a record in 2020 called Goodbye My Love, Lost Songs of the Beatles Covered and Rediscovered, with great guests on there like Roger Joseph Manning from Jellyfish, from Beck, from the Lickerish Quartet, and Keith Sleditall. He was on the show earlier this year. Anyway, Frankie's a great musician, a great engineer, great producer, and a really great hang, man. We had a great talk about his studio work, about working with the Posies, about how he got into the studio work. And you're going to hear one of his songs right now called Amuse. It's a Frankie Siragusa original. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with the immensely talented and extremely cool Frankie Siragusa. Let's get down.
Yeah. I'm used to not getting paid for stuff, so maybe that's the difference.
How are you doing, man?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm good. Really good, actually. Yeah, lots going on. Things are kind of coming back online. Just saw that you did a show too, right?
I
recently?
did. Yeah, I did one on Friday
How
night.
was that?
It was fucking great. It was unbelievable.
Was it a little bit like unusual, or did it feel like we're right back where we left off?
No, I've been going places. So I was
Okay.
that on that level. I was like, there was a show I went to like 3 weeks ago, and
Okay.
everything had been limited capacity. Everyone had to be wearing a mask, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden I went to this show, and it was just wall to wall people with no masks. And I was like,
it's
okay,
odd.
yeah,
Yeah.
Because with my show,
My girlfriend does like she kind of works in the EDM world, and she does photos and videos and things for people, and she just got called to do one last minute on Saturday for Steve Aoki here in LA,
Yeah.
and it was so jam packed that the ceiling was dripping from just
sweat.
all the sweat, and like literally it was on her. Like she's like, I had to start covering my camera because it was like raining at
Wow.
one point almost, it felt like. And she's like, it was weird, but it was also kind of like back to maybe not fearing your fellow man.
right.
And I don't know how that'll pan out, but I don't know. It's long overdue in a way.
Right.
I'm actually a little bit. The one part that surprises me is I thought people might be timid at first, and it just seems like not at all.
Right.
And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
We've
No.
been ready.
I thought I was going to be more timid. Like when I saw that room at first, I was like, ugh. And then I saw someone I knew that I haven't seen in over a year, just ran up
Yeah.
and hugged him, you know?
Yeah.
And it
Well,
was
there
on.
just doesn't seem to be quite. I don't know. The news cycle maybe has calmed down a little bit, so that's like maybe not triggering the fear mechanism quite as much. And
Right.
I don't know. I thought the same would be true for me, but I was in Vegas when they lifted the mask mandate in California, and I think Vegas might have either been ahead of the curve or around the same time. And I kind of instantly forgot about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, maybe I think there was one place that was like, no, we still require masks, and it's like I didn't even have it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, right.
That's
it was like no time.
That's the part that confuses me, that I wish there was a blanket rule.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to wear your mask in the grocery store here, but at 7-Eleven you do. So I don't
It's
understand.
reverse here.
It is?
My 7-Eleven, no mask, but food for less for whatever reason, of all places. It's like mask required. It's like, okay, well, the square footage seems a bit less dangerous here, but okay. And the clientele.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is. The Posies play next month, and we're opening the venue in Bellingham that we're playing 2 nights at.
So you're going to Europe?
And then, no, in Bellingham, Washington.
Oh, okay.
And then Seattle. So we'll be doing 3 dates, and I'm really curious how that's all going to happen.
Did you know?
But-
Did you know Matt Harris?
I knew of Matt Harris for actually even before he joined the Posies, because I was a big Oranger fan. I'm
Yeah.
from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So I knew of him and seen him live a couple times, but I never met him. And actually, we had been corresponding on Facebook end of last year, and just kind of thinking maybe we could get together at some point, get
Yeah.
some coffee, maybe
Yeah.
we could jam at some point, because we
Yeah.
never had. I had kind of told him I was an Oranger fan, so when he joined the Posies, it's like, oh my god, this is perfect. And yeah, he was here in LA for a session, I think maybe October or November, and we were going to grab coffee because he was
Okay.
not even 2 miles away from me where he was recording, but it just didn't happen. And then
Yeah. What a sad
the
loss.
rest we kind of know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah. When it happened, it really affected me, even though I hadn't met him.
Yeah.
Maybe because I hadn't, and just because I had kind of gotten to know him through John and Ken a lot,
Yeah.
and then John and Ken have just had so much loss already within the group
Yeah.
that just felt super heavy and out of nowhere and just sad,
Yeah.
And maybe because he's from the Bay Area too, just sort of felt a little bit like one of our own in a way, a little bit closer to home than Darius, who I had actually not met either. But still just, super tragic.
Yeah. He and I were really close. We did a tour in like 2007 with this guy, Ian Moore. And and we were roommates on that tour.
I know that name.
And just I mean, we on our days off, like he was so friendly, he knew someone everywhere we went. Like, oh, my friend has this like the best Indian restaurant in all of Cleveland. You know what I mean? Like, and even
I heard he was a good cook too, by the way.
Great cook, yeah.
Yeah.
And I literally had never spent that much time like on tour. You get to the hotel, you go off on your own on your day off just to get away. Me and him did everything together. It was really wild. We ended up playing together, and his dad lives here, and we became friends. And I went and stayed with him in Palm Springs a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, but you've been playing with the Posies.
Yeah, I've been playing with them for 5 years now. There was a little break in 2018 because that was with the Frosting on the Beater lineup.
Right.
So they kind of did like a little reunion kind of, I think it was the 30th anniversary. So, but I joined them. Well, I guess I played on the Solid States record, which was in 2015.
Okay.
But then I joined them on tour in 2016, which we weren't sure if that was going to be permanent or not. It was like, let's try this out. I had only met John once before that. I had known Ken for almost maybe 6 years at that point. We had worked together in the studio and stuff, so there was some familiarity there, but how were we going to gel as like a three-piece? Also, not having a bass player, how is that all going to translate? And then it just worked out, and so I think we were out to dinner on my second show with them, and somebody we were with was like, so when's Frankie become a real member? And John was like, yeah, whenever he wants. And I was like, oh, whoa, well, that didn't take long. The 48-hour probation period.
Yeah. Did you come up a fan of theirs?
Massive fan of theirs.
Yeah.
And it was actually kind of fun because my brother, he's 10 years older than I am, so he was primarily the person who would bring home a new artist, on CD or cassette or whatever and be like, listen to this. But the Posies were the first band where I kind of showed him somebody, and I actually discovered them. I believe it was on 120 Minutes with the Dream All Day music video.
Yeah.
I had this sort of process down where I had a VHS recorder ready. And if I liked the first couple bars of a song, I'd hit record.
Yeah.
And then if it ended up not working out, I'd hit stop, rewind, re-cue, and record and pause.
Right.
And of course, the intro to Dream All Day is just so, in your face. I was like, I don't even know what this is, but I love it. Before even the drums kick in, and the whole song, of course, I was just a huge fan of. I think I didn't have any money to go buy a record, so I kind of showed my brother the VHS. He went and bought the CD, and then we just sat at home and listened to the whole thing front to back. And I just remember loving every single song, which is kind of rare. I even then I was picky.
Yeah.
I was like, I might like half the record, but I loved every single song. And then ever since then, I was buying the new albums on release day, trying to see them as much as I could. I actually didn't get to see them live until they reunited in, I believe, 2001.
Oh, wow.
With their acoustic tour.
Right.
So yeah, no, I've been a fan for ages, and I would still consider myself one, I definitely, I go between different states while I'm with them, from either we're friends or we're bandmates, or maybe we're in the studio and I'm kind of wearing the engineer hat, but then every now and then I'll kind of sit back if I have a moment and go, how the hell am I here doing this? This is, really out of body kind of experience of joining one of your favorite bands. I have posters of them still framed. I hide them whenever they come over, but no, I don't actually. No, they're proudly displayed. Yeah, it's, I have stuff that's signed from them, signed by them from the early 2000s. It's sort of, and it's the same thing with the Lickerish Quartet, the Jellyfish guys,
Jesus,
massive fan.
How did you first hear them? Oh, that's how you and I met, right? Through them. You reached out to me?
Yeah. Well, I believe actually I saw that you did something with Ken, and I think I reached out to see if you would want to do a podcast with Keith, because I had worked on his solo record, and then I believe Lickerish Quartet maybe happened after that. I could be wrong. I could be getting this mixed up. But yeah, there's a few people you've talked to that I've had the insane pleasure of working with.
That's amazing. So tell me, they came to you. How did you hook up with Roger and them? Did you know him?
Well, in general, I have this either good or bad habit, depending on what side you're on, of hounding people to be like, hey, let's work together. So, first one was Ken. He was the first one that I reached out to. And then when I worked on his solo record, I kind of had a proof of concept. I mean, I had been making a lot of recordings, but nobody really notable yet. And I was really proud of how that record came out. So I wrote Roger, because I had maybe messaged him a couple times, letting him know I have a studio, I'm local. He was, if you ever need anything for your solo record, let me know. It was always just kind of niceties back and forth. But this was something I could send him of somebody that I knew he knew of, that maybe he would take a listen and it might resonate with him. And I think within 24 hours, I got an email back. You know what? Actually, this could work. So we booked 3 days together to do some keyboard tracking for his solo EP Glamping. And actually the new one that's going to be coming out, I believe next year. I think he's working on it. We'll see when it comes out. But, we did, all these songs together, and that went really well. I think he felt like I understood how to track analog, vintage analog synths, electric pianos and whatnot in a digital domain that didn't end up sounding digital, that it could kind of sound like the eras that these instruments came from, and largely that, he would be partly responsible for why I was influenced in that way. The Jellyfish and Imperial Drag records and stuff. So kind of come full circle there. And then, it was years later, and we just kind of stayed in touch. I thought of me for doing the Lickerish Quartet overdubs, and we spent over 30 something days together, spread out across maybe 3 different pockets of time. Because Tim was not local, so we'd have to do it in kind of a concentrated burst. And so it was through that that initial experience of working with him on his solo record that it kind of came to be that I would help him with the Lickerish Quartet. But it was also kind of like, let's try it. Let's do 7 days and let's see how that goes. And we all got along. I think there was kind of a symbiotic energy of pushing the envelope, but also staying kind of true to the classic, and kind of, I think we all kind of were speaking the same language, or maybe I learned to speak theirs. I'm not sure if I can take any credit for it, other than that. And
no, but
so then we just kept booking stuff.
There's a world of guys that, you listen to the Beatles, you get into Badfinger, then all of the bands that follow in that Cheap Trick, you know what I mean? Like every time one of those bands comes out, they're your new favorite band, like Jellyfish was for me.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it was important too, because even before I heard Jellyfish, I was the kid going to school with Beatle cassette tapes in my Walkman. Right. I was not listening to whatever was out at that time. And certainly, obviously there were things that were out at that time, but not in my age group was anything, interesting to me. My friends weren't listening to Tears for Fears or Crowded House, even though they were popular at that time.
Right.
So I was just raiding my mom's, cassette collection, which was all 60s and 70s stuff, Fleetwood Mac and whatnot. When Jellyfish came out, it felt kind of like, and Posies shortly after for me, it was like, oh, these bands give me that same feeling.
Yeah.
But I could go see them now. They're like my Beatles or my Badfinger or whatever, or Cheap Trick. And even though I still wasn't really old enough to go to any of those shows, unfortunately, though I did get to see Jellyfish at the Warfield, which was incredible. And that was Spilt Milk era.
Okay. Yeah, I saw them on that tour too.
Yeah, and I met Andy's mom at that show.
Oh, really?
I had this. I think I was 12 years old. These are all really embarrassing stories, but might as well, right? I'd written on a napkin, "Hey Andy, I play drums as well, and here's my address. Send me something." And I was going to just throw it on stage. That was my like grand plan. It's like I'm going to go up there and I'm going to throw this note on stage. Andy's going to get it, and I mean he's going to send me something.
What did you think?
As if that's how it worked.
Yeah. But what would you want? What would you want to receive in the mail?
Oh, I hadn't thought that
Like
far
maybe a
ahead.
note,
I just
drum
want
head?
Andy to a note, drumstick or
Yeah.
something. And the waitress who was coming to our table was like, "Oh, what are you writing there?" I'm like, "Oh, just a note to Andy." And she knew of the band and stuff. It's local. So she's like, "Well, his mom is sitting right over there. Do you want me to introduce you?" And I was so nervous. I'm like, "Yes." So went over, gave her the note. And I would say maybe 2 weeks later, I got an autographed photo of Andy, and it was a real the photo still doesn't exist like anywhere else. I know it's just some private collection thing, and on there's like a note that says "Keep practicing, Andy."
Oh, that's nice.
So he actually did send me something, which was really really awesome.
It's
Yeah, I
funny.
forget what we were
It's funny
talking
that
about, but-
bands that band and their success was so odd. Their whatever level of success they had on a record chart and record sales level, this is not an impressive thing. But you come across guys like you and me all the time that are like, "Oh no, they're like the best fucking band that ever was, like of that era."
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't go with the Pearl Jam. Like I went that way, and I was like, this is a lot more fun than wearing shorts
Same.
and being all sad on stage. Like that sounds boring.
Yeah, I didn't become a Nirvana fan until like 15 years later.
Right.
I eventually understood it, but at the time I was in the power pop world. Even though I know that word sort of can mean many things. The Red Crosses of the day. And, even sort of the later generation of like later 90s Gigolo Ants and Letters to Cleo and all that stuff was really appealing to me. I didn't need aggression. I was a teenager. I had plenty of that. I wanted to counteract that with something else. That was my way of dealing with it anyway. Right. It was, and I think also for Jellyfish to be also from my hometown. I mean, they were just, a couple, they were like maybe 10 minutes away from me. I think even Andy took drum lessons, I read, in my town where I actually went to school. So it felt, there was like maybe a pride to it too. It's like, oh, this is mine.
Like Spoon here in Austin or something.
Oh yeah. No, I know who I also love. I would put them in that category too. And so it was just very much like that's what's in my DNA. I mean, there's so many bands in between the Beatles and Jellyfish that I did not listen to until much later. That it was that kind of extreme. It was like 60s, early 70s, and then early 90s power pop. And then it was much later that I would get into Prefab Sprout and Depeche Mode and the Smiths and stuff like that.
Right.
Ashamed to say I did not know who Sparks was until 2 years ago. Yeah. And now it's like, there's so much other music that kind of play in that world that I'm just still discovering.
Yeah.
But my collection was like, I just wore out those tapes.
Yeah.
There's like 5 tapes that I just play constantly.
Yeah. So you were playing when did you start playing drums? Like when did you connect with music and say, like, did you ask for drums or did someone give you drums?
Oh gosh. Well, I was that young that I can't really remember. I was like banging on coffee cans and stuff when I was like 3. And I think I got my first drum set when I was 4. I think that might've just been my mom taking note of, oh, he likes that, so maybe I'll get him one of his own. It was like a Junior Remo Pro, so they were real drums, real drum heads and everything, but just like a lot smaller. And what's even crazier is we were in an apartment building, and my mom would actually go to all of our neighbors and be like, hey, can my son rehearse between
That
like
is
3 and 4 every day? Yeah. So we, even though we're in an apartment building, and actually we would see our neighbors and stuff and they go, "Hey, you're sounding good,"
that's
because they would,
awesome.
of course, hear, right?
Yeah.
It's like a drum set in an apartment building is ridiculous.
I got rid of my drums when I moved into this apartment. I had them for a little while, but
you
I
just
was like,
needed
what
to
am I
make
going to do?
an agreement with your neighbors between 3 and 4. Don't call the cops. And then, I started, my whole family was in music, so I kind of took to bass and playing guitar and things like that within a year of starting drums at 4 years old. So I kind of was trying to dabble in everything that I saw my various family members working on. So it was like kind of a slow progression of learning the instruments, but I kind of learned them all together, which I think helped me figure out how they wove together, because I would do multi-track recordings as early as I think 6 years old.
Wow. On
Just,
what, like a
here's the
4-track
drum
or
part,
something?
and here's how No, I had 2 cassette decks.
Oh, yeah.
And I would just bounce between them.
I
which
thought
I guess,
that I thought when I was like 14, I thought I invented multi-track recording. Because
so did I.
was doing
think
that.
there's a lot of us.
Yeah.
Apparently, Les Paul is the only one that truly invented that, and then all of us had to have our dreams crushed as inventors. I think that really was just kind of all. I don't even know why I took to recording either at such an early age, because I don't even know at age 5 or 6 when I started, pressing record on my player, that I even understood what the concept was. I don't think anybody ever really explained it to me. I just think I wanted to replicate what I was hearing on MTV and on the radio, even though I don't think I understood overdubbing. All I knew is that none of my friends knew how to play anything. Right. So if I wanted to hear a fully realized song, I was going to have to do it, you know? Thank God, because it really gave me a head start. I didn't realize that's what I was doing.
No. So, your dad played music, or your brother and your mom?
Actually, it's all on my mom's side. My mom played guitar. My brother played a little bit of everything: bass, drums, guitar, sang, wrote songs. My mom wrote songs too. Grandmother was a jazz musician, played piano and sang.
How cool.
My grandfather played horns in a jazz band. And then all my uncles play a variety of things, from drums to keys to bass to guitar. So, family get-togethers, holidays would be, around 8 or 9 p.m. when everything's been digested. It's like time to start singing Hey Jude, I guess, or whatever somebody decided to start with. And it really would be the whole family joining in on some type of instrument.
Wow.
And I would just try to keep up, I'd just try to, and they would encourage me too, because I was the youngest. So they're like, "Oh yeah, Frankie, do something," and I wouldn't have any idea, but I'd just kind of try to pay attention to what they're doing. So I had a lot of influence just from my family, even without it feeling like instruction. It really kind of was. It's like, oh, this is how you do that, and this is how you do that. That's how these two things go together. It's how I learned how to harmonize. It's just my mom in the car would harmonize to a vocal that was solo, didn't have a harmony there. And she's like, "You hear how I'm doing that? You try it now." And we'd just be on our way to the grocery store or something. But, and then I started getting the hang of what, a third sounds like, or, or you can make up your own or whatever.
Right.
And they did it in kind of a non-technical way. Like it was, because I was super, super young, so I wouldn't have taken to that with any interest.
No one's going to explain theory to you in some way, and you're going to get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just be like, "Ooh, yeah, tell me more." It's like, there's just no way that's going to appeal. But they had a way of making it fun and engaging. And so I just became obsessed. Which, oddly enough, translated to kind of a disagreement later on, because, when I was picking my profession outside of high school, my mom did not want me to go into music. And it's like, "But you just spent all of this time making me fall in love with it. How dare you pull that out of, that argument out?" But I won in the end.
What did she want you to do?
She actually wanted me to go into school for business. She just wanted me to become a business Yeah,
Business
just
guy.
no, yeah, a briefcase, a suit, and a nice bank account. I'm sure, which
To make sure you're okay.
yeah, exactly. So, but I think I also kind of had a business mind, which has served me well as a musician, because those two things normally don't go hand in hand.
No.
So in a way, I think she did hammer in some good life lessons and things to pay attention to, ways about going about things that are not just you sitting on the couch going, the band's going to make it. No, maybe be more practical, strategic, professional, all these things that I think have actually helped me have some level of success in what I'm doing.
Yeah. So did you ever get a 4-track or anything, or was what was your first experience outside of multi-tracking with a couple of cassette players?
I was borrowing my brother's Fostex 4-track player.
Okay.
Well, borrowing meaning, he would be working and I'd be visiting, because he lived with my grandmother actually. So I would go over there while he was at work and just, with all these, I didn't have any blank cassettes, so I'd have to take all these, maybe the Ozzy Osbourne album that I didn't really care for and put tape over the back, and so, I was constantly re-recording over things and learning how to layer. And gosh, man, that was so liberating, being able to edit on the fly, being able to go, wow, I have actually control over these 4 elements. I'm not stuck with however I track them like I did with the cassette decks. And that 4 tracks felt like so much wiggle room.
Yeah.
Which, to go backwards now to record on a 4-track would be a real challenge. But at the time, it felt very liberating. And then I used it so much that my brother got me one of my own, but in a Tascam. But I think it was sort of dead on arrival. It never worked, unfortunately. So I just kept using his. And then eventually, when I got into my... I did meet somebody in high school that finally listened to at least some of the music I listened to. He was a Beatles fan, but he kind of went more the folk direction. So he was the one who showed me Simon and Garfunkel and Joni Mitchell and things like that. I was like, oh, cool, this is interesting. And he had a 4-track Tascam, but he had just gotten a new computer as well that had Cakewalk on it, and we had, I think, 64 tracks or something like that, which even now still would probably, I'd probably run out, after you're doing auxes and stuff. But, it was, gosh, that felt like, wow, I can multi-track drums. That's insane. So he kind of introduced me to computer recording. And I remember being super skeptical. I guess I was kind of a hipster then too. I was like, I don't know about this computer stuff, we should be on tape, man.
Yeah.
But then once we got started, and I'm like, wow, there's reverb on here? You mean I don't have to use my guitar pedal for reverb?
Yeah.
I can actually, just open the door to so many more tools. So I quickly went to digital recording at that point. And then it'd be a few years after that I went to school for it, which then started on tape and then brought you onto the digital Pro Tools workstations and stuff. So I kind of have dabbled in both sides of it.
Right.
But digital, of course, I don't think I would have been able to start a recording career, having my own recording studio, without digital recording, for as much as I want to be like an analog guy, it's but there's no way I would have had the capital to buy 2 Studer tape machines and then maintain them.
And then also every time you go, a reel of tape, at least the last I remember buying a reel of 2-inch tape was $150.
Oh yeah, then you got them on sale. I think they're maybe even twice that now.
God.
It's crazy. Yeah, I was so I have this Tascam 8-track, and I'm just, even the calibration tape for that is oh gosh. Well, maybe next summer I'll buy that.
Is it half inch or something like that? Or,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are cool.
Yeah, I might just leave it uncalibrated and super punk rock for right now. And we'll see. I'll save up for my calibration tape.
So how long, were you playing in bands and and recording and going to school for recording and playing gigs?
It was very patchy, so it wasn't, I don't think I was ever doing all of that all at once. I did my first band in high school, and then that kind of fizzled out. Then I went to school, kind of just focused on that, and then decided to kind of start my own recording studio, so kind of focused on that. Then I joined a band just through a Craigslist ad in LA called Actress, and we were together for maybe a year. And that was the first time I felt like I was in something that kind of had some gusto, like, wow, this could turn some heads, kind of thing. And we did a little bit, but the band imploded because it had basically the equivalent of the Gallagher brothers for lead singer and a drummer. They were two brothers that constantly argued. And so that devolved. But then I kind of went back into recording. Then I decided to start collaborating with people, which was sort of like a 1 foot in, 1 foot out way of doing things, where I can work with people, but I'm not putting all my eggs in the basket of, is all this time going to end up equaling nothing in about 6 months when you self-destruct? So it felt kind of like the way to go. And that's how I met Ken. And then everything just kind of, all the opportunities that I'm sort of taking advantage of now came from that move of deciding, hey, I want to be a collaborator with people. I'll still engineer. I'll still do my own records. If gigs come up to hire me to play drums, I'll do that, or whatever, guitar, bass. But, the collaboration aspect just gives you so many more opportunities to build musical relationships with people. Yeah. And sometimes they are, they stop at the one song. We did the one song. That's great. Now we're just, colleagues, I guess. But sometimes they can turn into more. And then, that's kind of how the thing with Keith happened. And we just kept making music together. And then, of course, the Posies, that's the ultimate, is like, hey, let's collaborate. Hey, you want to join the band 5 years later?
Yeah.
So it was really the best move. And I'm still doing that. And it's also just not even just from a logistical standpoint, but for me, it's very rewarding to have all of those different artists kind of in a way showing me their process. Yeah. It's such not that I necessarily adopt all of it, and not to sound like I'm plagiarizing, how they work or whatever, but it's just like, I would have never thought about approaching that musical problem that way. Good food for thought, and it just becoming a sponge. And especially when you're working with people that are your musical heroes, to peek behind the curtain is really interesting. And people like John and Ken, people like Roger, Tim and Eric from Lickerish Quartet, it's been really fun to peek behind the curtain of some of my favorite bands and go, it's not smoke and mirrors. They're actually really badass and they're cool people. Yeah. Because so quickly you could actually become like demystified by it in like a bad way.
Right.
But no, I remember the first time I did a vocal session with Ken, he sang a track that we collaborated on, and this would eventually lead to the solo record I mixed for him called Danzig in the Moonlight. I was just so blown away by his performance. Like, it was a performance. It wasn't just somebody who came in and was like, hey, I'm going to sing some vocals and then maybe you can just comp it, and now let's break for lunch. Yeah. Like, when I pressed record, he was in the zone, mannerisms and all. And I just remember just looking through the glass going, this guy has probably been doing this, twice as long as most of the sort of local young kids that I work with. And he's giving it 300% more oomph than they are. And he has every reason to sort of not do that at this point. It's like, been there, done that, I'm going to relax now, but he and all of these sort of heroes of mine are that way. They still treat the moment when you hit record like it matters. Yeah. And so many young bands, maybe it's because of the way everybody's growing up now with, just you take for granted that GarageBand is on your laptop or on your phone. It's like you have your own multi-track recorder just built in to your device, and you don't really need to, nothing's precious.
No.
And I don't mean that music needs to be precious in like a bad way, just sort of, it should mean something.
Right.
And I think your performance is greatly impacted by that, you know?
Sure. I also feel like with the with the democratization of recording and people being able to do this stuff in their own home and stuff, what ends up happening is that I feel like the art of recording has started to focus around carving out perfection as opposed to capturing magic, which what you did was you just captured magic with Ken.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You didn't know how to comp and use auto-tune on this one thing and all this kind of stuff to make it all perfect. Yeah. He made it.
Right.
And you just recorded it.
And imagine when that's your starting point, then all of these extra tools, which I, would never talk down on, are just sort of icing on the cake then, if employing them makes sense. And that's another thing, is that this default of everything needs to be auto-tuned, everything needs to be processed, super compressed, everything needs to be this way or that way. Maybe for certain genres, there is a kind of a
modern genres,
go-to. Yeah. But I just feel like, couldn't we at least have a conversation between deciding that on, whether or not we could do something different? Does it all have to be that way? It just starts to get a little, I guess for me, it's just boring. It's, it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just, for me, it's just stops being appealing and unique. And, when you can, like you put it, if you can start with magic, then I feel like your decision making too is a bit more intentional. Right. Like if you're just starting kind of with plain Jane, whatever tracks, and now you actually have to create the spark in the mix. And that can be done now with, especially with kind of the way you can manipulate things now. And people kind of assume that that's what you're going to do, is that everything's manipulated, nothing's pure anymore. I even recordings that I just don't trust much is organic when it's something that's been released in the last 5 to 10 years. Right. And it might be, it's just like, I don't know. Usually I can tell, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I'd have to see them live. Yeah. And then I'd have to watch closely, make sure they're not, lip syncing or something. I don't know. And I don't like being in that state of mind. And maybe that's my problem. Maybe I need to lighten up and just enjoy it. But part of me is just because of the art form of it. When you can have the magic there, I guess going back to the original point, and you're starting from that place, then that's dictating your move. You're not imposing on the vocal, or you're not imposing on the guitar part or whatever to create some magical thing. It's already that way. And you can go, oh, well, now I just have to polish it here, or maybe emphasize it here. Right. And it's the artist and it's the performance that made it. Yeah. Not the mixer. Right.
Before we go too far off of the thing, I did want to acknowledge that your studio is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. You're kind of seeing
well, I was looking at all the pictures today. On your website, which is the labstudiola.com. Yeah, you have a gorgeous piano.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's a beautiful space.
A couple of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got an upright, actually 2 uprights and a grand piano, all from the 30s.
Awesome.
So they're all ivory keys. Sorry for some people out there.
Happened a long time ago.
Yeah, different time. But they do feel different, I have to say. Yeah. But no, they, they're beautiful instruments. Lots of vintage stuff, pianos, organs, now synths. Been kind of synth obsessed lately. So just been kind of trying to. I'm never done shopping.
No, you never.
It's an illness.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine that started a studio a few years ago, and I was out to dinner with him and his wife. And she was like, I don't understand. He just doesn't stop. And I'm like, well, it doesn't end. Yeah. There's new shit comes out all the time, lady. What are you, crazy?
Like, for sure.
You got to get
it. Or just like, I'm filming these Synth Saturday videos for Roger on his Instagram. And, where he's featuring one of his new synths, or not new, but a favorite of his, because, he has like over 100 of these things. And so he'll be pulling things out that I've never heard of before. It'll be like a Yamaha. I've heard of Yamaha, but it'll be a version of that, like the CS15. I've never heard of it.
Right.
Heard of the CS80.
Right.
But you look them up and they're like only like $800 or something like that. It's an analog synth. And it's like, oh my gosh. So you're, because of the internet too, you're just constantly hearing about forgotten things,
Right.
and better get on it before it's twice as much next year.
Yeah.
It's never ending.
So let me ask you this: as a guy, I mean, that's your studio. When you go, is it weird to make the choice like, oh, I'm going to go out on tour now for a while? Like, what happens to your studio then?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, this year I've been thinking of actually trying to, I guess, mentor a couple engineers, friends of mine, to basically take advantage of the space while I am on the road, because it is kind of a shame to just have it sit here.
Yeah.
And I do have somebody that I've shared the studio with for a good 10 years now.
That's good.
And he has some of the equipment here, so he'll use some of that time. But I kind of just go wherever the wind blows, and that does mean sometimes this beautiful space sits for a few months at a time. The touring is sporadic. Right after the Solid States touring, the Posies did do the 30th anniversary with the Frosting lineup. Right. So I was kind of not on tour for a good year, 2 years there. And then it kind of picked up, and then it kind of, pandemic happened. So it'll be interesting to see what happens starting next year, when the Posies put out the new record, if that does become more consistent or not. I'd love for it to be, because I love being on the road with those guys.
Yeah.
And then I love playing with Tara Lightfoot as well. I don't know if you got a chance to see her open for the Posies on that anniversary tour.
No.
Canadian artist, amazing, great rock and roll, killer guitar player, killer vocalist. I started playing drums for her 2 years ago, and love playing in that outfit too. So stuff from that might continue. It's really hard to say how things are going to open up.
Yeah.
But I'm encouraged so far. It looks exciting, but also trying to, I guess, manage my expectations a little bit too. So
yeah.
There's a little bit of wiggle room, but so far so good.
It's hard because it's, and I didn't have the success that either of Jellyfish guys or the Posies guys, but it's an interesting position to be in now, because I'm sure even on some levels what they're doing is probably the best shit they've ever done. Right?
Yeah.
And
I think so. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, because you don't get worse. You know what I mean? Like, if you keep doing it and you keep an open heart and you stay in that creative zone, then you should really, like Bowie, only get better.
You're right.
Yeah.
I think it depends on if you're trying to, like, this is a really awful example, or maybe the best example, I don't know, but the last 3 Kiss records, for instance, I think in the interviews for each of those, Paul Stanley is like, we were trying to capture, Destroyer, in this, try to go back to our roots. Right. That's never a good idea. Right. Yeah. I mean, you can go back to your roots to just, I guess, remember who you are, but you're different now. Yeah. Your life has changed you. And how can you even think of writing from that same place? Yeah, it'd be nice. Right. It'd be cool to make a Destroyer part 2 and have it be good, but that's just not possible. So I think one thing that, and I don't know why this is, but, the Lickerish Quartet and the Posies have decided to make the music they want to make. They're not really trying to capture some type of, they're not trying to go back and go, let's see if we can have the success we had on Frosting on the Beater. Right. That doesn't factor into it. Now, I'm not saying that
they don't want it
on the business side of it, that we don't look at marketing options.
Yeah.
But when we're making the record, they're interested in pushing the envelope from where they're at.
Right.
And I think they've always been that way, which is why their records don't sound stale.
Yeah.
They sound fresh and inspired, and so many bands make that mistake. So I think you're right. Like, you should only get better, and I think it's a choice on whether or not they. But to do that, you have to move forward. You can't move backward.
Move forward. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's hard to garner. It's hard to go out and get new fans. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a difficult sort of sell at a time where it's hard to get fans, even if you're, you know, whoever. I can't even think of anyone. A$AP Rocky or something. You know?
Yeah. Well, that's a code that is really hard to crack, because there's, you know, sometimes there's a resurgence of like Big Star because Netflix put out the documentary.
Right.
And, you know, maybe there's some forgotten song from the 70s that, you know, some person's dancing to on TikTok.
Right.
And now that band is popular again. And it just seems so random with regards to like what people want to repopularize or popularize for the first time many years later. But to your point, like, to just have a campaign to go, hey, we're gonna get a new audience this many years later. It's a difficult ask, but it can be done.
Yeah.
I just think it takes a certain kind of, that's a marketing person's job, you know, and should be, you know, so the artist can be left alone. Right. Make their art.
But I was noticing even the other day at my own show, I was like, all right, some of these people have been coming since like 93. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where's it?
Well, there are those few bands, like, you know, I think the Posies enjoy its sort of cult following that has been very loyal. And I would say part of the reason maybe why they feel liberated enough to do whatever they want with their records, which is an awesome luxury, is because of that loyalty of the fan base. It's sort of afforded them, like, I don't know how to say this. It's like more than enough. Right. It could just stay like this, and it's more than enough for it to not just feel worth it, but to feel like this is success to us. Right. And will we turn down new fans? Absolutely not. But I don't think the Posies are hurting for
I know what you mean.
For people to be into this, you know, and for there to be interest. And that's a real luxury.
It's kind of like when you look at like Todd Rundgren is like that. Like, he does he's always just done whatever he's wanted. He makes his money producing records, so he just makes whatever records he wants, and his fans are fans of him, and they're just waiting to see what he puts out next, and he's earned that loyalty.
Yeah, and like if you've thrown enough curveballs and they're still with you, then you're like, well, okay then. Yeah. You know, then absolutely no rules now. Yeah. And you know, maybe it won't be your favorite record. Maybe it'll take 5 listens and you'll change your mind. Maybe you won't, but you're still going to be with us. Yeah. And I think also, you know, like John and Ken are not afraid to kind of throw in, you know, especially live and stuff, songs that, you know, go way, way, way back. You know, that there's not like a song like Creep. Right. In the Posies catalog where it's like, absolutely not. We will never play that song. Right. You know, they'll play anything. They love pleasing the fan base. Yeah. So it's not like out of some sort of punk rock anarchistic middle finger. It's just sort of like, hey, we're just going to be ourselves here. Yeah. And hope that that's okay. You know,
my thing with Radiohead and that is that they're just rich kids. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they can afford to be punk rock. Like, they've always been able to afford to be punk rock in their ethos.
If them, you know, getting that huge check to play Coachella hinged on playing Creep, they'd play Creep. Yeah. But it doesn't, so they don't have to. I mean, I think they're playing it now, but God, how many years did that take? And then it was like headlines. I remember like a few years back, Radiohead's now playing Creep. Like, why did they ever stop? Come on, guys. It's one song. It's 4 minutes.
I know. I know. You'll make people so happy. Then you can go back to the weird music you're making now, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's hilarious. Do you get out to see, like, I guess before the pandemic, do you get out to see music, and do you go see what's going on?
I wish I was better at that. The last band I think I saw was Sloan doing Navy Blues in its entirety.
Cool.
In LA, which was amazing.
Yeah.
I loved that. I love them anyway, and I've seen them a couple times, but seeing them play that record front to back, and then they came out and did a second set. That was the first show I had seen in years, probably, other than the ones I played. But it made me kind of like miss it, because I didn't have to work, so I was just there and a fan, kind of, and it's like, oh wow, I forgot what this felt like. So, but, and now, it was like maybe a few years later, or no, not a few years later, sorry, a few months later that a pandemic happened. So I think I'm itching to get out and see more shows, especially like, I think Sparks is coming around in February. Definitely think I'm going to try to go to that.
Did you see the movie?
Yeah, I just saw it 2 days ago.
Good.
So inspiring.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, I loved it.
I only know Cool Places, but I know that they had other stuff.
Oh dude, it's intense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what
they've
heard.
been a band since I think I read it's like 67 they started.
Jesus.
And they're making their 25th record. And they've been constantly ahead of the curve stylistically. I only know this now because I've researched it all, because I've become obsessed recently, but
right.
It's like, wow, the amount of genre changing that they've done is incredible. So needle drop all over the place, and you're going to just have enough musical diversity to span, many, many decades and many, many different things.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
How do you find, like, do people come to you, like your clients, or?
Yeah, I've never advertised, believe it or not. Even when I first got started, I was in the middle of building the studio when I got my first client, because I was selling a guitar amp on Craigslist, and the guy who came to pick up the amp kind of looked around, was like, "You record bands here?" And I just kind of, agreed. Yeah, I do. And then he had his band in a couple months later, and then they told some people, and then they told some people, and the closest thing to advertising I've done is emailing people whether or not they would want to work together in some capacity,
right,
collaborating and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, primarily, even during the pandemic, I was really braced for a hard year for employment, and I'm so fortunate, because I know many weren't, that I still kept getting emailed and called to do things, usually remote drum tracking or remote mixing and mastering. Sometimes I'll get called. I work with a lot of singer-songwriters, because it's pretty economic to just hire me than a producer and a band, because I tend to play all the instruments on their records.
Right.
I did that recently, actually during the pandemic, for Kyle Falconer of The View.
Oh, awesome.
In Scotland. I flew out to the UK in September of last year. I was really worried whether or not I was going to even be able to be let in, but we rolled the dice and I was able to get in.
Wow.
Luckily, we were staying in a flat that was attached to the studio, and you have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So I was, I wasn't breaking any laws or rules. I was, able to quarantine, because I wasn't leaving the studio for a month. And so we worked I didn't take a day off. It was 30 days straight. We made a double album, which then got split up into 2 single albums by the record label. They're like, too much information.
Yeah.
Which made sense, yeah. So I'll get hired a lot to do that kind of thing, where it's like, hey, I've got songs, right, and I just need kind of an ideas guy and somebody who can execute them, and then I'll just come sing over the top of it.
That's awesome.
And that's really fun. I mean, it's like I'm back to being 6 years old again with my tape decks.
Yeah,
just
totally.
Layering stuff and trying things out. And most of the time people are pretty stoked on it.
Yeah. Well, listening through to the stuff that you sent me you're really fucking great. at what you do.
Oh, thank you.
Like you really
thank
are.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's that, like there's also a variety in, like, it doesn't, I wouldn't hear something and say, "Oh, Frankie did that." You know what I mean? Like you
nice.
seem to
That's,
work
yeah.
you seem to bring the character out of the singer and make the song better. You know?
I take that as a huge compliment, because that is always my goal. Like it's kind of like what I was saying earlier about having like default processes with music. Oh, we're always going to do this or we're always going to do that. I try to actually never do that. I'm constantly, for convenience sake, sometimes I'll leave a drum kit mic'd up a certain way over the course of a few projects. Maybe there's a couple go-to things for time's sake.
Sure.
But if I have the freedom to do it, I like to change my process as much as possible. Now, to what degree it changes, I don't really know, but I'm at least intentionally trying to go, all right, this isn't about bringing Frankie to this. This is about bringing the artist's vision to life.
Yeah.
And of course, that's still going to be through my lens.
Right. There's going to be some Frankie in there, but
but I'm trying my very, very best to make the song fun in its own unique way.
Right.
And it not be about me or even necessarily what I think works best. Like it's kind of a weird thing. Like if I was doing it as a solo song, I would be embodying it. But when it's somebody else's song,
right,
I try to almost think of it from a completely different standpoint. And a lot of times I might make decisions that outside of working on it might not even be something I necessarily like as like a individual consumer of that work. But I have fun doing that. It allows me to kind of stretch and be outside of my comfort zone. Like I remember there was one song I did for a friend of mine, maybe 8 years ago. And for whatever reason, it just felt like it needed reggae guitar and bass. And that hasn't ever been a part of my musical, I mean, reggae is great, but I don't know what brought that up other than the song kind of dictated that.
Right.
So then it sort of made its way into the recording in its own way, and then it got augmented, but it's things like that sometimes that I really try to, the best of my ability, try to channel it. And that all has to do with whether or not also there is inspiration from what the artist has brought me.
Right.
So sometimes that doesn't happen, I would say it's rare, but there are times when I get a song and I'm like, I kind of have no idea what to do with this other than the generic. And that's not appealing to me. That's not me bringing my A game, you know, and that's, and I know, I feel like that's just this mystery. It's like it either clicks or it doesn't,
Right.
But most of the time I can usually get there, even if some of them take a little bit longer.
What do you got going on for like the next month or so? What projects are you doing?
So for the next month, excitingly enough, so there's the 3 Posies shows we're doing in Washington. So that's going to be both really fun and really nerve-wracking to kind of grease up the gears again. I just started rehearsals yesterday for myself just to, get the limbs moving again. 'Cause I haven't in so long, it's like, do I even have the physicality to play a 2-hour show again? So I got to go back to training.
Yeah, dude, you know what I did last week? I went to my rehearsal space every day before my band even rehearsed and rehearsed my set standing up and playing it the whole thing. Because, I mean, I've been playing around, been sitting around, just kind of singing, but I wanted to sing into a microphone, try and sing over something.
Yeah. And even just standing for that long. Yeah, I know. It sounds weird. It really was weird. I was, there's, one of the Posies tunes that I sat down to play for the first time in actually since maybe almost 2 years now. And it felt really strange. I'm like, do I even know how to play drums? This felt really bizarre. But then obviously it started to click. I'm being too hard on myself. But
Yeah,
it did feel sort of like, whoa, definitely some cobwebs in here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, dude, not only that, but like I mean, I have a few amps, but I've been using like my Pro Junior and my smaller amps here in the house. But I went to take my amp to the rehearsal, and when I went to plug it in, I reached in the back, it was just all cobwebs.
Yeah.
I hadn't used it since September of 2019.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was weird. Hey,
it's good though. I'm not ready for it, but I am, if that all makes sense.
Yeah.
It'll be, I think the spirit though, no matter what, even if we're a little bit, like rusty Tin Man here on stage, I think the vibe is going to be good, because we've all been waiting to do this for too long.
Yeah.
So, I'm kind of just trusting in that, hey, there'll probably be some follies, but we're all in it together here.
Yeah. I realized that. So a couple of people told me they'd never seen me smile so much on stage as the other night. And I was like, I bet I was just like, I'm doing the thing again. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Totally. And, I can't wait. And, so that's kind of part one. And then part two for the next month or two is I'm, believe it or not, that collaboration project that I was talking to you about 10 years ago that I started, where I reached out to Ken and started getting people on board and trying to work with other people. This is finally getting completed. So it's a 10-year long 4-album series that I'm completing and going to be releasing next year. So this summer I'm putting the final touches on mixes, creative. I'll be kind of digging into more details of who all is involved. It's in a weird way, it's like my life's work.
Yeah,
it's been that long. It feels like it. So, I keep it really hush hush, only because it's so special to me. I want to make sure all my ducks are in a row before I go here, and put it out. But, so something's brewing, something's cooking up, and it'll be announced, I believe in January, but I might tease it earlier.
Okay.
And then I'm doing a part 2 EP, the From Deep Blue to Shallow Gold EP I put out a couple of years ago. I'm putting out a part 2, hopefully, this fall. So a lot of different things.
Do you ever get out and do that stuff? Like, do you
live?
Yeah.
I did, some solo shows, 8 years ago, maybe, or something like that. And this band, Kid Cadaver, from LA, who I produced, they were my backing band. We maybe did 5 shows, and just never really did anything with it beyond that. But I'm sure coming back from the pandemic, now having this collaboration project that'll be released, there's just kind of too many things to not try to bring to some sort of live performance. Right. So nothing in the works yet. But I think that'll be coming as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to, anyway. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, man, keep me up with what you're doing, and when you go to put that stuff out, come back on the show, because I love your work, and I love your music.
Thank you.
And you're such a nice guy.
Oh, thanks, man.
I don't know, even just from your email things, I got a good vibe, and this has been great talking to you. Yeah,
you as well. Yeah, it's definitely. I've enjoyed, the interviews you did with Keith and Lickerish Quartet, and this has been long overdue. I appreciate your patience as we've
no problem.
Kind of waited to make this work.
Because I just started asking, hey, you want to be on the show last year?
It was awesome.
That was just because you seemed like such a nice guy. I was like, well, everyone's working with him. He must be fucking great. So,
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and would definitely love to come back on.
Good, man. Well, let's do it again, and people can find you at thelabstudiola.com.
Correct.
And
yes, and frankiesiragusa.com as well.
frankiesiragusa.com.
And then all of my handles, I believe, are just at Frankie Audio.
Okay.
Even my Twitter, which I don't believe I've logged into in 2.5 years, but my social media manager might change that for the next year.
All right.
We'll see.
Well, talk to your social media manager.
Yeah. Do I even have a Twitter still? Have I been banned yet?
I don't know. Did you? Do you get banned for not posting?
No, I just gosh, I'm almost scared to log on and see who I'm even still following. That would be like a whole other lifetime ago.
Oh, you're in here. Yeah, you know what? I don't follow you, but yeah, I see you there. Yeah, you haven't posted
that's
in a
good.
long time, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I might have to delete a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, like one's from 2016 and one's from 2017.
Okay, yeah, I might have logged back on to be like, hey, I'm in the Posies and retweet and all that stuff. And I was like, nah, no, this still isn't for me. Instagram's like really the only thing that I kind of lightly enjoy engaging on.
Yeah.
Everything else doesn't feel natural to me, but we'll see how that changes.
It's a little weird, but
it is a little weird, right? I'm learning.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, dude, thank you so much for doing the show, and stay in touch. Please send me music when you do it and stuff.
I will.
Yeah, it's great talking to you,
good
Frankie.
man. Yeah, you too.
All right, buddy.
See you, brother.
Bye.
So hey, can you help cure me? This needs fixing quick.
All right, that is Frankie Siragusa. Great conversation. Always love talking to that dude, man. Yeah, you can find him at the labstudiolaA.com or frankiesiragusa.com. Actually, if you go to frankiesiragusa.com, there's links to everything else. So go there. Check out the Posies. They're out playing again this month. Go check out Frankie's music. Check out his latest album, Goodbye, My Love, Lost Songs of the Beatles, covered and rediscovered, featuring guests Roger Joseph Manning and Keith Sleditall from the 88. Great band. Great dude, gang. Great conversation. Don't forget, when you're out there checking out frankiesiragusa.com, you can subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you find podcasts, be it Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Overcast, anywhere. All right? Stay safe out there. I think we should keep on wearing masks. Everyone, keep on wearing masks. Get vaccinated if you're not. Stay safe. Stay safe. Have a great weekend. And let's get down.
There's nothing left to say or do. I'll just lay down, safe and sound. Close both my eyes, I signify that what I allow is material. Let's wait. I don't need curing, I think I'm over it. Diffuse, it's okay. Nothing's left, these words I feel have turned inside out. I'm shown these four walls don't in turn surrender. I'm home. These words I feel have turned inside out. I'm shown these four walls don't in turn surrender. I'm home. These words I feel have turned inside out. I'm shown these